promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar, 1 p.m. in Abuja. Good afternoon, and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on WADR.org. Welcome to NewsLink. Here are the top stories. The world celebrates a century of radio broadcasts as a driver of national development and voice of the voiceless.
As leaders and public opinion influencers, we have a big stake in the nation. Thus, we also have the...
Radio has afforded the populace a platform to be heard and a platform where you can always be informed. Without radio, a lot of people will never know what is happening beyond their personal lives.
Two former Senegalese heads of state, Wad and Diouf, call for dialogue and a joint initiative to resolve the country's political crisis. Burkina Faso's transitional government engages private sector on alliance of Sahel states withdrawal from ECOWAS. And President Adama Barrow of the Gambia addresses security and migration issues in national dialogue with opposition politicians and CSOs.
As leaders and public opinion influencers, we have a big stake in the nation. Thus, we also have the huge responsibility of striving to maintain peace.
Stay with us for details of these stories and more.
Here is Abdullahi Hassan with NewsLink.
Many thanks for joining us and a warm welcome to our listeners in the Gambia, Ghana and Liberia. And happy World Radio Day to you all, a celebration mode that opens our news. Now, February 13 each year since 2011 has provided an opportunity to celebrate radio as a medium of communication, enabled the chance to promote international cooperation between radio broadcasters, and encouraged major networks and local radio stations to foster access to information and freedom of expression. This special day has several objectives, which include raising awareness among the general public about the value of public service and encouraging decision makers to promote the dissemination of accurate and reliable information. But as we celebrate this year's theme, a century of informing, entertaining, and educating, debates emerge about the future of the priceless medium. According to reports, millions of people across the globe follow radio, not just on frequency modulation FM, but also on social networks. Students at the Journalism, Internet and Communication School, EDUCOM here in Dakar, believe this could be a source of strength. However, opinions on the subject differ. Let's join Augustine Coley for more in this report.
Leon Jewell attentively follows his teacher's explanations in the fast-checking class. As a second-year student in journalism and communication at EDUCOM, he expresses a keen interest in social media while harboring an unwavering love for radio. Despite celebrating its 100th anniversary, radio in Georgesville remains more relevant than ever.
100 years is a jubilee, a time of rejoicing of the fruits that radio has been able to create in the life of individuals, especially here in Senegal, thanks to its magic. But the other utility of this medium is its proximity. Today, radio can resist all these dynamics of social networks that are there, but in reality do not suppress it. Because whatever we can say in the most remote areas, even if we lack the internet, we don't lack the radio.
In contrast, Aja Indoi, a second-year student in journalism and communication, expresses reservations about the growing influence of digital media on radio. She opposes the trend of famed radio, popular in several press groups in Senegal, believing it diminishes the originality of the medium.
What I like and have always liked is the mystery of the person listening to it. And I don't know, yes, while not being filmed, the person is actually telling us, giving us information. Sometimes we listen to the music, etc. But it is this mystery that has always kept me on the radio.
C'est ce mystère-là, moi, qui m'a toujours retenu dans la radio, oui.
However, Fatiman Ibrahim takes a different stance, asserting that the radio is in decline and destined to disappear.
Personally, I think the radio is dying. Just because from day to day, I don't listen to the radio. I just follow everything that is on the TV. I watch things on the internet. And for me, I think the radio is dying. And that another version of the radio is taking over.
The debate on the potential disappearance of radio continues, but the United Nations Scientific Organization, UNESCO, maintains that this medium, with its rich history, is more crucial than ever. Its unique capacity to foster peace and dialogue contributes to its enduring significance in the media landscape.
Augustine Koleu, that report filed in by WADR's Mustafa Jakiti. Now let's hear from some radio enthusiasts in Ghana about the impact of this medium on their lives as a source of information and an everyday guide.
Around 2020, 2021, I started contemplating, and that was when more radio stations were starting to stream their stuff on Facebook and other social media platforms. So initially, there was that fear on my part that radio would become extinct. But over time, I've realized that if anything, it has rather entrenched its position. People realize that you can stream. That is why they go to look for the streams. But when they realize that they don't have access to streaming services, they go back to radio. When it comes to entertainment, when it comes to education, when we're reporting stories, sometimes with TV, it's sort of dependent. You are waiting for visuals to follow up on the story. But with radio, with just ambience alone, you can paint a kind of picture in somebody's head. So radio has really been relevant in our sphere, and I think it's here to stay.
The radio is the cheapest means by which we can obtain information compared to television, compared to even the internet. You don't need data. All you need is a handheld device and a frequency, and you are good to go. It's also easy to be on the go while listening to radio. You can't carry your television set if you want to listen to news around. So it's been so far so good. There are so many options now. There are so many radio stations. Where we are currently, there are so many radio stations because of the liberalization of the airwaves. Yeah. So obviously it's a good thing.
I think radio has afforded the populace a platform to be heard and a platform where you can always be informed. Without radio, a lot of people will not even know what is happening beyond their personal lives. And without radio too, people will not be able to associate or bring to for some of the problems and even the happy things that happen around their life.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. NEWSLINK continues.
Remember, you're streaming live on WADR.org and live on Facebook, WADR English Service. And now to developing stories from across the sub-region. Two Senegalese heads of state have launched calls in an attempt to restore normalcy and bring sanity to the political environment since violence erupted following the election postponement. Abdoulaye Wade and Abdou Diouf, in a joint letter on Monday, invited political stakeholders and civil society groups for a dialogue to arrive at a solution. As Ogibirika reports, the former heads of state also called on young people to stop the violence and end the destruction of property.
Abdoulaye Wade and Abdou Diouf conveyed their message to the Senegalese people following a telephone conversation with President Macky Sall. They assert that President Sall has reiterated his commitment not to seek a third term in office. In their statement, Abdoulaye Wade and his predecessor extend an invitation to political parties and civil society participants to engage in the dialogue initiated by President Macky Sall. They emphasize President Sall's dedication to preserving peace and stability in Senegal. Despite their past political differences, the two former adversaries emphasize that they have set aside their rivalries to engage in discussions for the benefit of the people. They call upon various political parties and civil society groups to participate in open and fair conversations, aiming for transparent, inclusive, and unquestionable elections. Directing their attention to the youth, Abdou Diouf and his successor acknowledged their frustration but appeal for an end to violence and property destruction. In a related development, ECOWAS parliamentarians arrived in Dakar on Sunday evening as part of a diplomatic mission from the sub-regional parliament to mediate the ongoing crisis. The delegation is engaging with various political stakeholders, including the Constitutional Council, with an announcement of the outcome expected on Wednesday.
Ogibirika reporting there. Meanwhile, the Dakar prefect has replied to the request for peaceful demonstration by the political platform Asuni election, which in the local dialect, Wolof means protect our elections. The platform had scheduled today for peaceful demonstrations over the delayed presidential vote. The prefect, in a statement late Monday, advised the group to select a new date for the march because the chosen route for the February 13 protest is experiencing heavy traffic and the rally will disrupt the free movement of people and their goods. The march planned for 3 p.m. today is therefore not authorized, the prefect said, urging the organizers to propose a new date and route which will be subject of an instruction. In Burkina Faso, the transitional government met with private sector players to discuss the withdrawal of the countries of the Alliance of Sahel State AES from ECOWAS. The meeting in Ouagadougou on Monday provided an opportunity for the government to explain the decision taken by the three junta leaders and outline prospects. The Burkinabe head of government reassured participants that the withdrawal would have no impact on the country's economy. Immediate has on this report by WADR's Martin Kaba in Ouagadougou.
The meeting commenced with the head of government, Apollinaire Kelem de Tambela, assuring private sector players that Burkina Faso's withdrawal from ECOWAS would not significantly impact the country's economy, as stated.
In reality, Burkina Faso trades very little with the countries of the ECOWAS outside the UEMOA zone. Most of our trade is done with countries that are even extra-African.
According to Apollinaire Kelem de Tambela, this departure from the sub-regional organization might even present a favorable opportunity to Burkina Faso.
The withdrawal will allow us to discover ourselves according to our interest and to sign bilateral agreements with those who want to in various areas according to mutual interest.
In response to this change, private sector players anticipate government support as they navigate through this new situation, as expressed by Idrissa Nassa, president of the National Council of Employers.
We want to make arrangements to ensure the free movement of people, goods and capital with the countries of the OECD, not even the UN. We wish that a mechanism is devised to support the economic operators of Burkina Faso through their headquarters, trade chambers patrols in their quest for the preservation of their activities in these countries.
The AES countries of Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger are set to exit ECOWAS in September 2024. The authorities of these countries currently undergoing political transition attribute their withdrawal to the sub-regional organization's failure to adhere to its treaties.
A report filed in by WADR's Martin Kaba in Ouagadougou and voiced in our studios by Imo Edet. Now, over in Guinea, talks between the government and the trade union movement stalled on Monday after the union representatives insisted on the release of the Secretary General of the Guinean Press Professionals Union before resuming talks. They threatened that unless action is taken before the expiration of the strike notice issued, the public and private sectors will embark on a comprehensive and unrestricted strike starting from February 17, 2024. Taufik Abdel Nasser has more on this report.
The National Council for Social Dialogue is currently serving as an intermediary in the interactions between government officials and trade unionists. The primary objective of Monday's meeting was to encourage all involved parties to prioritize negotiations to address the imminent social crisis. Amadou Jallo, the General Secretary of the National Confederation of Guinean Workers, declared that the union movement would refrain from negotiating with the government until Sekou Jamal Pendesa is released from custody. After this announcement, trade unionists opted to temporarily suspend their participation in the discussions. However, Amadou Jallo affirmed their commitment to the cause, revealing plans for a general strike commencing on February 17. As of now, there has been no response from the Guinean government. Sources suggest that the issue will be deliberated during the Interministerial Council meeting scheduled for Tuesday. Meanwhile, the National Council for Social Dialogue, leading the mediation efforts, asserts ongoing communication with all stakeholders to swiftly navigate a resolution to the crisis.
Taufik Abdel Nasser reporting there. You are listening to NewsLink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, 94.9 FM, Dakar, Senegal. Here's a reminder of our top stories. The world celebrates a century of radio broadcasts as a driver of national development and a voice for the voiceless. Two former Senegalese heads of state, Wade and Diouf, called for dialogue in a joint initiative to resolve the country's political crisis. Burkina Faso's transitional government engages private sector on alliance of Sahel state a year's withdrawal from ECOWAS. Ahead in the news, President Adama Barrow of the Gambia addresses security and migration issues in national dialogue with opposition politicians and CSOs. We also have the guest interview and a sports update. Please stay with us.
You are listening to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal.
We are live on YouTube at WADR News. Gambia's President Adama Barrow has led discussions on sovereign security, irregular migration, and political environment, among others, during a national dialogue with opposition and civil society organizations. This comes after the Gambia leader invited the opposition politicians for discussion as part of activities to mark the country's 59th independence anniversary. WADR's Sankule Janko has more.
President Barrow addressed opposition leaders and civil society organizations, CSOs, highlighting the paramount importance of sovereign security, among other issues.
Thematic discussions are proposed to cover the political environment, religious tolerance, ethnic diversity, sovereignty, security, safeguarding the media and democratic space, irregular migration, and empowerment of our youth.
The Gambia leaders stressed the importance of working together in the interests of the country. Simultaneously, the political environment took center stage, with the opposition expressing concerns about transparency, accountability, and democratic principles. The leader of the People's Democratic Organization for Independence and Socialism, Halifa Saleh, honored the invitation. And before him, the party leader of the Gambia Democratic Congress, GDC, Mama Kande, shared their perspectives.
No Gambian is safe at the moment. People are killed left, right, and center. This is not our culture. I believe all of us together we can make a change. Change for better Gambia.
There must be institutions of socialization. We must become Gambians. But to do that, we must train them. That is why the educational system must be interrogated.
Representing the civil society organizations, John Charles Njai emphasized the significance of the dialogue.
Today, we can decide under this forward-thinking theme to put the blame game aside and give way to our collective responsibility in preserving the nation, safeguarding the state, and securing our resources.
A key objective of this consultative meeting is to build consensus on holding and institutionalizing a national dialogue day. This initiative aims to encourage and stimulate reflection and dialogue on selected national issues, promoting, protecting, and nurturing peace and stability in democracy.
Sankule Janko filed that report. Liberian President Joseph Boakai has announced the constitution of a special independent investigators to probe allegations of a reported misusing of resources meant for the soldiers. In his late-night address to the the country, Boakai said the committee would thoroughly investigate the allegations and report within 2 weeks.
The issue raised by the armed forces wives affect all sectors of our population throughout the country. We inherited these problems as we have been in office for barely 21 days only. The problems take on graver connotations when it comes to the military. The men and women in arms put their lives on line to defend and protect us. We must be extra sensitive to their plight. The Army is our collective national pride, and we must preserve its dignity. I have therefore appointed a special independent investigator to probe into these grievances and report to me within 2 weeks. We have also activated a board of inquiry to look into the case of several soldiers who were discharged from the AFL for various serious crimes but were said to be undeservedly pardoned and reinstated. We must never tolerate indiscipline and breakdown of order in the armed forces of Liberia.
Liberia's President Joseph Boakai speaking there. The Ghana Journalists Association, GJA, has sit back at the National Media Commission, NMC, after it criticized as dysfunctional the decision of the GJA to impose media blackout on individuals involved in recent violent attacks on journalists. The association has declared a media blackout on Mavis Hawa Kuson, Member of Parliament for Awutu Senya East, and Farouk Aliu Mahama for Yendi constituency for acts of violence against media practitioners. WADR's Nadirite in Accra tells us more.
During the GJA's Zone 3 workshop in Kumasi, the chairman of the National Media Commission, Yawwedu Ayewafo, expressed regret over attacks on journalists carrying out their vital duty of informing the public. However, he criticized the GJA's stance on implementing a media blackout on 2 MPs involved in acts of violence against journalists, describing the position as popular but dysfunctional.
We cannot fight impunity with impunity. I will support any effort to ensure that justice is done against all such deviant acts, rather than blackout or boycott.
In response, the president of the Ghana Journalists Association, Albert Kwabena Jumfor, disagreed with the NMC chairman's position, arguing that all state institutions responsible for journalist safety, including the National Media Commission, have failed to meet expectations.
Often cannot we see NMC sanctioning journalists, media houses, go and apologize, go and do this. One at all as the NMC sanction perpetrators of attack on journalists. So if you can't protect journalists and you cannot ensure a safety enabling environment for journalists, why would we disagree if we are taking abnormal decisions? The system has failed us.
He clarified that the decision to impose a media blackout on Mavis Hawa Kumson and Farouk Mahama Liu was made after consultations with relevant media stakeholders. This engagement, this disagreement highlights the ongoing tension between the National Media Commission and the Ghana Journalists Association regarding the best approach to address attacks on journalists in the country. For WADR, Nandidi Teti, Accra.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
On our guest segment, Ibrahim Khan, a governance expert and NEWSLINK contributor, reacts to the call by 2 former heads of state of Senegal, Abdoulaye Wade and Abdou Diouf, 2 political actors, to embrace dialogue in resolving the ongoing political crisis. This call, according to a section of the population, may add to efforts to calm the rising tension occasioned by the postponement of the February 25 presidential elections. Speaking to WADR, Khan also urged for better civic education and a purposeful campaign to bridge the generational gap in political affairs by parties and individuals to prevent chaos.
All what is happening now is showing that there is a generation transition in democratic society in Africa sometimes create problems because they don't speak the same language. They don't have the same way of looking at issues, of trying to deal with issues. So there is a need there, in my view, for our political leaders within their party to start educating the young generation on how they should be behaving in a democratic society, what they can do, what they cannot do. You need to be educated for that. You need to do all of this, but it was not done in our political parties. There was just a club of people. You know, if you look at our political class, it's almost the entire political class that is going now retiring. And the new generation that is coming with its own culture, really having big problem to find their space and to know how to operate. But luckily, all of them have learned lessons through these 3 years of crisis that was not really needed, but it's useful.
Do you feel, in your view or perspective or analysis, that President Macky Sall has come to the end of his constitutional engineering?
Yes. You know, what is really funny is that sometimes people believe that they've done very, very good thing for their own society, but then realize at the end when they want to change some of these provisions, to realize that in fact they have created problem for themselves. You know, in 2016, our current Minister of Foreign Affairs, who happens to be a professor of constitutional law, was saying that the constitution that was adopted by referendum in 2016 was the best constitution of Senegal because it has sanctuarized some of the provisions that can never be changed, including the tenure of the president and the dates of the election. And now, for political reason and for political agenda, they wanted to change that. But at the same time, what they achieve and what Macky Sall has achieved, and for me, I'm really happy that is happening, within the society these last few weeks, it has regenerated our citizenship. The idea of belonging, the idea of upholding your constitution as the highest law of the city, the idea that, you can do everything, but don't change the social contract that we have signed among ourselves. Now, what we need to do is really to make sure that this kind of crisis will never happen.
What are some of the problems you see with the new constitution that gave rise to the current political crisis or showdown that we're experiencing today in Senegal?
There are many problems that we are having. This issue of the nationality, the dual nationality of our candidates, it's a problem. And this is not the first time that people were raising their concern, but they never wanted to sort it out. And it's almost destroyed our system. This question of sponsorship, it's just, it's not useful because when they introduced the sponsorship, the idea was to limit the number of candidates. But this sponsorship has even created more candidates. And at the end of the day, we need also to give certain position in our constitution. 93 candidates for the position of president mean that the position of the president is like somebody in the market. We need to change that because the president of the Republic of a country is an important institution.
That was Ibrahim Khan, an AU governance expert. And now for some sports news, Alex Iwobi, who plays as a midfielder for the Nigerian national team, was not spared by many Nigerians after the AFCON finals loss to Cote d'Ivoire. The former Arsenal man was the target of attacks and insults on social networks. In a statement on X on Monday, Ahmed Musa came to the defense of his young compatriot, decrying the attacks which he described as unfair and unjust. He said Alex gave his all on the pitch, as did every other member of the team, and called on the nationals to show love and support to the players instead of spreading hate. Elsewhere in the Gambia, a new coach has been appointed following the departure of Belgian Tom Steenvet, who resigned after the Scorpions were eliminated in the first round of the AFCON games in Cote d'Ivoire. The new coach, San Ndon, is a former Gambian international who has held the position of National Technical Director for the last 3 years. The former Banjul Hawks player had already coached the national team on 3 previous occasions from 1992 to 1994, 1994 to 2003, and 2016 to 2018. And with that, we've come to the end of this edition of NewsLink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Krista Mukidi and Maojo Ju for the technical support. Do interact with us via social media platforms, X, formerly Twitter, Instagram at WADR News, and on Facebook, now WADR English Service. I'm Abdullahi Hassan. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to NewsLink via Hot 104.3 FM, Newmi FM 94.0, and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County. For you listening via Radio Pad 95.1 Damango, Savannah region, and on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi, Ghana, we say a big thank you. Remember, West Africa Democracy Radio is all about you, your views, and your opinions.
Hello, West Africa. I am Taufik Abdul Nasir, and I am thrilled to announce the return of In the